Call the meeting to order for the Bonner County Planning and Zoning Commission. We're located in Administration Building, 1500 Highway 2, Sandpoint, Idaho, first floor conference room. Today is Thursday, December 17th, 2020. Would everybody stand, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Introductions of planning commissioners from my left, please.
Commissioner Frankenbottom, Commissioner Davis,
Commissioner Glassell,
Commissioner Scott,
Commissioner Bradish.
Commissioner Reed.
Commissioner Bailey as chair. We have one change in the agenda, file S0003-20 has been canceled. That's off our agenda for now. Mr. Taylor has asked me in the announcements part, he'd like to say something to the commissioners and to the general public.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Marty Taylor. The Planning Commission 2 weeks ago asked me some questions on a former project that you since recommended approval of. And I wasn't satisfied with my answers, so I went back to my office after the hearing a couple weeks ago and cracked the books and looked into my archives. So I felt that I owed you a little additional explanation to some questions that I couldn't answer a couple weeks ago, Thursday. Dawn had asked on that Idaho Club golf course open space, and the question was how many acres of that 196 acre golf course was open space, and the answer is 0. There's 195 acres of open space in addition to the 196 acre golf course. And that was a key question that Dawn asked, that I didn't have that data. So I went back into my 2005 file and found that. So that removal of a little bit of open space that we talked about 2 weeks ago was not part of the golf course. And then Taylor had asked a good question about open space conveyance. And that plat that we amended the other day did convey open space for the general use of those lot owners, because there was some public input about that. And that plat conveyance of that open space for that general use of those lot owners was subject to covenants. Which brings me to Matt's question that he asked me, which was, do the CC&Rs allow that removal of open space, and what are the terms and conditions of that? So I went through a 84-page pile of covenants and found that at section 3.1, it does allow for the amendment of those open spaces as allowed by the county. And so that's why we started with the county first with the PUD amendment request, because absent that, there's no authority for the homeowners association to go back and amend those covenants. So thanks for just allowing me to belabor that a little bit. It's important to me that I give you full information, and I wasn't pleased with what I had done the other night. So I just had to go back and dig a little deeper. So you got me.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thanks for digging.
Okay, so we've got one little business item here in the consent agenda, the approval of December 3rd minutes. Anybody have any comments? So we will sign those and move on. Anybody in the audience need any special hearing or speaking? No, okay, so that's a good thing. Up on the board is kind of how the proceedings happened. Most of you folks have been here before. If you want to glance at those real quick, and then we'll move on. So, being that it's 5:40, we move on to the first file, which is conditional use permit 0006-20, conditional use permit Idaho Lakes Planned Unit Development, Valiant Idaho LLC is requesting a conditional use permit for a large-scale mixed-use planned unit development, with 5 residential lots, 1 utility lot, 1 recreational lot, 1 open space lot, 2.89 acres, 1 access lot, and 1 submerged lot. This large-scale mixed-use development, PUD, is proposed to consist of commercial, residential, and recreational use. Property is zoned recreational. Project is located off North Park Road and Highway 2 in Section 1617, Township 57, North, Range 1 East, Boise Marie.
I'm Tessa Vogel, I'm a planner with the Bonner County Planning Department. And this is for the Idaho Club North Lake Plan Unit Development.
Real quick, were there any conflicts?
Oh, excuse me.
Oh.
Any conflict of interest? Please, I didn't think so. Nope.
All right, so the project was routed for comment and published in the newspaper back on November 17th, and the site posting was placed on November 18th. The list before you is all of the standards that were reviewed against for this plan unit development. It's going to be broken up when we look at the standards of review. What was met with no variations, what was met and variations were asked for, the codes that weren't met, and then the codes that were not applicable or the project was exempt from. So the applicant is proposing a large-scale mixed-use plan unit development consisting of single-family residences, boat storage and repair services, a pavilion, a common area, and public and private utilities. The site is located along the shores of Lake Ponderay in the Trestle Creek area of Hope. And it's within the recreational zone with a land use designation of resort community and rural residential. Again, like what was stated at the beginning, this is proposed for 5 residential lots and then 1 utility lot for the leach field, the boat storage, the repair services, a recreational lot for the pavilion, and the upland accommodations for the community dock users, a common area, an access lot, and a submerged lot, which will have the docks on it. So the photos in front of you are showing you the zone and the land use designations. The base layer map is a little shifted. That's why it looks like that northern property has a little bit of Rule 5 and 10 on it. It actually doesn't. It's all recreational. But it is split land use with resort community and rural residential land uses. That's the blue, and then the orange with the kind of black lines in it. These are the environmental features. You can see there's a little bit of slope on the lot that's between the railroad and Highway 200. That purple is the wetlands, and then all of that hash marking is the floodplain there. So these are the standards that we looked at that they were met. There were no variations. As you saw in the staff report, the detail was in there. I don't want to make this too long for you guys. So these guys met these standards, no problem. And then this is just a continuation of those standards that were met, and they didn't have any variations. So for the portions of the code that were met, it does allow for some variations to those standards, and this is where we're going to get into that. So for the maximum square footage for the mini storage, boat storage, anything like that, it allows for it to be a maximum of 10,000 square feet. This project has 3 properties included with it, and so instead of putting one 10,000 square foot storage facility on each of those lots, they are planning to cluster them all on the utility lot to help protect Trestle Creek and the Lake Ponderay. With the 2-acre lot size minimum when served by urban water, because they are having their own water system created, They are proposing to do the, not the conventional 2-lot acreage, but instead they're going to do a density average that PUDs allow for. And so with all of the land, there's an average of 2 acres per lot being created. And you'll see that the residential lots are quite smaller than the 2 acres. They propose to have a 70% lot coverage in order to maintain the cluster housing that they're wanting to do and to maximize the open space that they're proposing. For the rear yard setback, for the recreational and residential lots, the rear of those lots border the open space area. There's not going to be development in that area. And so they don't foresee a reason for there to be a setback to that property. So they're proposing a 0-foot rear yard setback. For the off-street parking requirements for community docks, users of the dock facilities own property at the Idaho Club and will access the facility primarily by boat. So upland parking is unnecessary for the dock users. For minimum off-street parking requirements for the assembly buildings, which is going to be the pavilion, most dock users will access this by boat, and the conventional assembly building parking standards, which would require 50 spots for this 5,000 square foot structure, is not applicable. In lieu of that, they are suggesting to have 35 spaces provided, with about 7 of those being a little further than 500 feet from the pavilion. For all the lots that essentially have a width of 100 feet or less, we require angle of intersections between 85 to 95 degrees. They're proposing to have that angle of intersection be between 95 and 113 degrees, but also maintaining angles of intersections that are adequate to accommodate 90-degree driveway entrances. For their road networks, we are looking at this to be designed and constructed to private road standards per Appendix A. And they propose that in lieu of the required 28-foot wide standard local paved public road, North Park Road will be improved to low volume local private road standards, consisting of a 20-foot wide travelway and a 22-foot wide paved roadway developed within a minimum 30-foot wide easement where it's located on the applicant's property. Adjacent to and outside of the railroad right-of-way, a turnout on the east and west side of the railroad crossing will be constructed to a minimum width of 26 feet with a minimum length of 40 feet. For lots that are less than 5 gross acres, we would require them to directly front on a public right-of-way. Their variation is that each lot will directly front on and will directly access a private easement versus the public right-of-way, and that this easement will be developed with a hard-surfaced, low-volume private road, accessing the recreational and residential lots. Like their lot coverage percentage, they are also proposing to have a 70% impervious surface area allowed. With this, there is a roughly 60-foot wide vegetated open space buffer that's included between the recreational and residential lots in Lake Ponderay. This buffer will serve to preserve both the quality and quantity of Bonner County water resources and to reduce erosion and sedimentation into the waterways. So that's why they're asking for the 70%. The 40-foot setback to wetlands is what our requirement is. They are proposing a 0-foot wetland setback as the site has been approved for shoreline improvements, including wetland fill, and we have that vegetated buffer. For our standards that were reviewed against but were not met at the time of the application, the design standards for the plans for the commercial buildings were not submitted to us. This can be done at the building location permit stage. Most of the time we would have those and they would be part of the site plan where we can see where those are going to be located and such, but that's something that can be done at the time of the location permit. Our landscaping and screening standards require a plan or plans for that. Those were not submitted, but will be required prior to the issuance of this project. For our design criteria for the specific use of the boat storage, that's going to be in those plans. It talks to the landscaping, signs, walkways, just the design standards specific to those. And so that's going to be essentially part of those commercial building plans that we'll be getting. Lastly, for the roads and access, all new proposed roads will require road names. This one didn't have it, but it will be required prior to the final plat. That's one of the requirements that GIS would have for it. And then, right? Oh, somebody said something. These are the portions of code that were within the standards that we reviewed against, but were not applicable, or the proposal was exempt to them because they're doing a conservation subdivision. There's no public amenities proposed, so that's not where the density bonus is coming into play that they are wanting to do. That's based off of the open space. We are concerned with that second one, because this is in the recreational district. The proposed lots are within a conservation land division, making them exempt from the requirements of 623A, and all of the other standards were met. No trails or parks are proposed. And then with the last two, services are available, and there's no conservation lots as an alternative, and then there's no development reserve lot proposed. The two comprehensive land use designations located on the properties is resort community and rural residential. Resort communities provide for urban light densities for areas centered around the recreational areas developed for winter and water sports, golf and hiking, where urban services are provided. And rural residential provides for residential development in areas where urban services are not available and slopes may vary up to 30%. These areas include hazard areas and critical wildlife habitats, where lower densities reduce potential impacts to resources and exposures to loss of property or lives. Small-scale agricultural uses and residential development are permitted. The stormwater plan was required and was submitted with the application, and that was routed to our county engineer, Spencer Ferguson, and he reviewed that and approved the plan, stating that as long as it's followed, the calculations make sense for their stormwater runoff. We routed to agencies on November 17th. These are the list of agencies that did not provide any response to us, whether that is just no comment or comment. We did receive 4 comments from the agencies. First is from the Department of Environmental Quality. They just sent their standard environmental letter to us with the best management practices. Montana Railing voiced their concerns over the property purchase issues, a requirement for each property owner to have their own separate permit with the railroad, crossing safety issues, the impact on neighbors from tree removal for the better line of sight, that there's been no application made to negotiate an easement or permit for the roadway that crosses over the corner of Montana Railway property. And they do bring up some issues that if you guys need clarification, Mr. Taylor can elaborate on that, because the comment is a little misleading in the property purchase problems that they bring up. But I'll have Mr. Taylor explain that if you would like. Department of Fish and Game, they submitted a bunch of best practices with dealing with wildlife, but they did voice concerns over the 70% impervious surface and the 0-foot wetland setback, because they felt that it was not in conjunction with trying to protect open space wildlife habitat. San Juan Fire District requested an additional 10,000-gallon water storage tank be provided on the utility lot in addition to the proposed water tank of the applicant. They noted that the 20-foot roadway along the residential lots is insufficient for fire vehicle turnaround, and wanted to know what the snow management plan for this PUD was, if there will be access to the docks via a paved walkway, and where it would be located, if there will be fire hose boxes, and make note that if the parking is not adequate, that vehicles could park alongside the road and be in the way of fire vehicles attempting to access the lots. We did route to the public on November 17th as well, but we received no public comments to date. So with our findings of fact, there's a lot of them, there's 27. So planning and developments are permitted in all districts. The subject properties have a recreational district zone and comprehensive land use designations of resort community and rural residential. The site was developed with a former Idaho county resort with an RV mobile park. The residential lots will range in size roughly a little over 13,000 to 18,000 square feet. The access lot will be 1.6 acres. Recreational lot will be about 19,000 square feet. The utility lot will be 2.12 acres. The open space lot will be 2.89 acres, and our submerged lot will be 15.42 acres. Access is provided off Highway 200 across the established railroad crossing, which then goes to a private road. The single-family dwellings, boat storage and services, and community docks and marinas and the upland accommodations are permitted within the recreation district, both outright and with a conditional use permit. The proposal involves reserving 11.84% of common area as open space where 10 is required. No phasing of the development is proposed, as the development can be completed within the allowed 4 years. The travelways and roads proposed are suitable and adequate to allow for the anticipated traffic and will not generate traffic in amounts that will overload the street network outside of the CUD, which would be the State Highway 200. The development will include a homeowners association, in addition to the CCNRs that are sufficient to enforce the development requirements and responsibilities of that homeowners association. The site will be served by a community leach field, a public water system, San Juan Fire District, and Avista Utilities. Our Bonner County Revised Code 12-23C is no longer required per our Bonner County Ordinance 607 that had to do with our servability. The site will be developed with the 5 residential lots and then 1 utility lot, recreational, submerged, open space, and access lot. And a density bonus based on the additional open space is permitted to allow for a total of 5 residential units. That's based off the fact that they're doing 11.84%, where 10 is required. 3 10,000 square foot boat storage buildings are allowed as the project includes 3 properties, normally 1 on each, but instead we're going to cluster them on that utility lot. The lot size minimum in the recreation district where urban water is available is 2 acres. We're going to be doing a density average for the lot sizes. All setbacks will be maintained except where variations occur, which include a 0-foot setback for the rear yard where 5 feet is required, and a 0-foot setback for wetlands where 40 feet is required. Users of the dock facilities are on property at the Idaho Club and will access the facility primarily by boat, making upland parking not applicable. As most of the dock users will access this pavilion by boat, we're going to have the reduced 35 spaces provided, with 7 of those being further than 500 feet from the pavilion. We'll have the between 95 and 113 degrees for the angles of intersection. The standard local paved public road will not be what North Park Road will be improved to. It will be improved to low volume local road standards with that 20-foot wide travelway, 22-foot wide paved roadway, and a 30-foot wide easement. A turnout on the east and west side of the railroad, but adjacent to and outside of the railroad right-of-way, will be constructed. 70% impervious surface within the shoreline areas and for lot coverage will be permitted, where 35% is allowed. Stormwater management plan was completed for the project and approved by our Bonner County engineer Spencer Ferguson. Management plan for the oversight of the open space area was submitted. The fire hazard rating is moderate, and the per trip generation letter for the morning peak vehicle per hour is 2.9, and for the PM it is 3.6. For our conclusions, we found that the proposed conditional use permit is in accord with Bonner County Comprehensive Plan, that this proposal was reviewed for compliance with the criteria standards set forth at Bonner County Revised Code Chapter 4, Title 12, Subchapter 2.2, Environmental Standards of Chapter 7, Title 12, and Stormwater Management Criteria and Standards set forth in Chapter 7, Title 12 of Bonner County Revised Code, that the proposed use will not create a hazard or will not be dangerous to persons on or adjacent to the property. These are our standard conditional use permit conditions. So we got the development shall be operated in accordance with the approved site plan. It will not supersede deed restrictions. All setbacks per the approved plan plan unit development shall be met. Then we have our time period of the 2 calendar years to have the use started, and that the applicant shall install prior to ground disturbing activities all temporary erosion control measures. Then we have our prior to the final plat recording, the proposed primary plat shall have the approval of an engineering report prepared by an Idaho licensed professional engineer demonstrating that an adequate water supply is available to meet this estimated demand for water from the lots in the proposed subdivision. That will need to be submitted to us. That's one of the requirements for these conservation subdivision section. They're going to be creating their own water district essentially, and we need to have the written approval essentially from the state saying that it's going to be adequate. The following language is going to be included on the final plat prior to recording. It's in regards to fire safety. If you have any development within that floodplain shall be developed in accordance with the Bonner County Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance. For number 9, a unique road name for the proposed 22-foot wide access road shall be provided on the final plat. Staff has also brought or created this last A10 condition in regards to the concerns that the Fish and Wildlife Department had over that 0-foot wetland setback and the 70% impervious surface. That 60-foot wide buffer that they are proposing is to be a mitigating factor for that. But if the commission feels that that is not sufficient enough, we suggest that all roofing materials shall be required to be made of materials that limit the amount of chemical runoff into the open space. That as a note to be put on the final plat. So essentially there'd be a mitigating factor on top of a mitigating factor to protect that area. And that would be up to you to amend that to allow for that condition if you see fit. And then those last 3, those are the conditions that are going to need to be met prior to the issuance of the permit. The design plans fulfilling those requirements for the commercial buildings, the landscaping and screening plans, and then the boat storage plans that have the specific design criteria for those structures. Staff concluded this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code and Bonner County Comprehensive Plan. Staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit for a large-scale mixed-use plan unit development, file CUP 0006-20, subject to the conditions identified in the staff report and during deliberation. The final decision rests with the governing body after the completion of the public hearing and consideration of all relevant oral and written testimony and evidence. And that concludes my staff report.
Any questions to staff before we move on to the applicant's representative? Let's see.
Well, I guess I can ask questions, Commissioner Davis. The access, MRL pointed out that the existing entry crosses a portion of their property as is depicted on the site plan, I believe. And so I was wondering why there isn't a condition that that be rectified as a preliminary going in.
The portion that crosses the Montana railing.
Well, that plus another issue, yeah. The whole thing with MRL, their comment is
I'll have Mr.
rather substantive.
Yeah, and there's some of it's a little misleading. It makes it seem like there are some permits or allowances that are there that makes it seem like they aren't. But Mr. Taylor can go into depth about that.
And then the encroachment permit from ITD, they didn't respond, but I still want to see what that is.
They did not respond to us with any concerns or recommendations or requirements.
Yeah. Still a state law that says you got to have an encroachment permit for a commercial outfit on the state highway, so.
Which they'll be required to do as a sign off of the building location permits for those commercial structures. we require the road jurisdiction to give sign off on those.
There's no mention of it here.
This isn't for the building location permit though, this is for the planned unit development.
So much of your pavilion access, you're hanging your hat on boat, the boat, basically, you're gonna come up on your boat, and that's how you're gonna get the access to the pavilion.
Correct.
And that's what you're hanging your hat on, and the roads and everything else. I don't go there. I say that in non-boating season, like holidays, you're gonna have to be using that pavilion. You'll be using it for holidays. And so, and if you wanna say, well, it's all gonna be boat in, then write a condition that says cannot be used during non-boating season.
Otherwise, it's gonna be so hard.
Because otherwise, go back to road standards. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, there's no way that you're gonna have that pavilion sit there empty during non-boating seasons. So I don't agree with that. Off the record, not gonna do it.
Is that pavilion strictly for owners or is there?
It's not a public use.
It's not a public use?
No. And it's an open air structure. So the use in the wintertime, that would be interesting to see.
You could do it right now. You could do it right now with our season.
No, I totally understand where you're coming from.
So shut it down during the ongoing season. That's it. You can only access it if you have a boat.
Yeah. But there are 35 parking spaces, I think it says 32 or 35.
32 or 35, yeah.
Yeah, and that's up there in the area. Because the recreational lot is.
The
adjacent
recreational
to
lot
the
is the farthest
cul-de-sac.
northern
Yeah.
one, yeah.
And that's apparently a cul-de-sac all to the north of it, off of the private road.
Mhm.
So somewhere in there is 32 or whatever parking spaces somewhere. Yeah,
We're gonna reduce road standards because it's a boat-in only, then write a condition that's not used during non-boating. You can't make an assumption during the presentation for what's gonna happen 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road.
rather surprised if all the users came by boat.
Exactly.
Are these 5 lot owners very much anticipated that they would have boats? And is there a boat launch off of that, into that private road?
There is off of the rec lot, right?
There's a boat launch.
Marty? Yeah,
So,
it's down at the very bottom.
and then there's gonna be boat storage and so forth over on the utility lot. I understood it from the
Yes.
application, so theoretically, lots 1 through 5 owners would go grab their boat, pull behind their 3,500 dual wheel Jimmy and bring it over to the boat launch it, and park the trailer somewhere. Whether they're day users or they're gonna put it over there on the dock for the summer, they gotta park it, whether they park it back over there where the storage is, seems logical, but they might just park it for day use somewhere there on site. That doesn't seem to be covered anywhere.
No, but that's definitely a condition that we can make with this.
The other part, could you bring up, and I think it was included in the resource maps, where it showed, one of them showed the existing sloughs that are on the site, where there's some boat slips now, or boat out of the docks and so forth. Yeah, the next page down, I think,
This one?
but both of those. So those show in the light blue, those are the lake to the left, and then sloughs that come up into the property. Which appear to be, whether those are pure open water or they're wet areas, the wetland map, which I think is, what, the one on the left?
Yep, that's the purple.
But those are designated as open water on that one. Appears that those get filled.
There's a flood development permit in for water course alteration, fill and dredging for that property.
Interesting.
It's interesting to me too, that there's a little diagram shows about 50 boat slips for 5 lots. It's maybe a private place with not very many parking spots for that many boat slips.
All right, so we got some questions to answer.
All right, questions from Mr. Taylor?
And that, down there, granted, like you said, the lot lines are all shifted because of GIS and so on.
Yeah.
But you come in on North Park Road and then there's a dot with an address, that's the address function of the GIS
Mhm.
on an existing building. Is that to remain? What is it,
That,
you know?
that's gonna be part of the access lot and that'll be gone.
Right, okay.
The road goes right through.
That's where the road is, road's up against the road right away.
That's how much stormwater.
Yeah, it, gotta be dressed up. Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Representative of the project? Come on up, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, Marty Taylor, certified land use planner with James A. Sewell and Associates, assisting the Idaho Club folks this evening. And thanks in advance for your time and driving into town. Just quickly by way of background, this property was formerly approved as part of a planned unit development 2005 for nearly 250 housing units. That project went the way of a lot of projects in 2008, the fall of when the global economy collapsed. So it went from a RV and mobile home park historically to an approved PUD with substantial density to now a PUD with 5 houses. I'll rely on the application materials for all the math and the analyses as to how this complies with the county's PUD codes. It's essentially mixed use planned unit development that's defined as a large scale project. Staff and the site plan shows that there's houses and utilities and recreational opportunity, boat storage and an access lot and some submerged lands. We devised this to create the exact amount of open space that you need in order to coincide with the density requested, which is the 5 lots. Planned unit developments in the county allow for what's referred to as deviations from conventional development standards. Maybe it's a lot size minimum, maybe it's a setback, maybe it's a road standard, things like that. And in order to deviate from some conventional standard, whatever that might be, you have to provide some kind of justification for the deviation and show how that deviation is warranted in order to obtain your design objectives, is what the code refers to. Those deviations, they are articulated by code section in the application materials, and then staff reference those as well. I won't belabor that unless the Planning Commission has a particular question on requested deviation, whichever one it is. I'm here to answer those questions to the extent that they're not already answered in the application materials. I'd like to move along to responding to some agency comments, and then I'll clarify some what I'm hearing as misunderstandings as to the scope of this project. With regard to the railroad comment, and as staff had suggested, the railroad comments were a little bit misleading, suggesting that this property does not have legal access. This property has legal access via a private crossing. What the applicants simply did was make application to widen that crossing. That application to widen was not approved, which was fine. Because what the county code says is if you have a narrow stretch of road that's private, which this is, you can have turnouts before and after that narrow stretch of road so that emergency vehicles can pull over while another vehicle passes. When you look at the plan unit development site plan, it shows those turnouts before and after the crossing, all on private property, not railroad property. It meets that private road requirement for turnouts before and after a narrow stretch. With regard to the additional railroad comments on things that are effectively a private matter, like insurance and permits for lot owners, that's no different than a Department of Land's dock permit that says if you're going to transfer your property, you have to assign it to the new lot owner. That's all that is. If there are any improvements required as a term of condition of this private railroad permit, then that would be specified in that permit. I do find it somewhat ironic that the railroad talks about limited sight distance due to vegetation, but in the next paragraph, they don't want you to cut down the trees because it might reduce the noise buffer. So I'm not sure how you're supposed to increase sight distance by removing vegetation while still trying to maintain some noise buffer. We appreciate the fire district comments. The bulk storage that's proposed at 10,000 gallons, there's 5 opportunities in the county's code to meet fire flow, whether it's an individual 2,000 gallon cistern, whether it's a sprinklered building, whether it's an actual city style fire hydrant system, or whether you propose some bulk storage. In this case, bulk storage is proposed to the effect of 10,000 gallons. That water supply is not to be commingled with the potable water supply. In other words, we don't have to worry about the fire district losing fire flow because everybody's watering their yard or doing laundry, and that 5,000 gallons, that 10,000 gallons is now 5,000. So they are distinct sources of water. As to the storage building fire suppression particulars, I think staff had mentioned that for a commercial type structure, the county code requires the fire district to sign off on a building location permit prior to issuance of that permit for, in this case, a commercial boat storage. So the details of how fire could be suppressed or managed with regard to boat storage is something that is addressed at the building location permit level. What we're seeking approval for tonight with regard to the PUD is simply the allowance of 3 boat storage buildings on a single property. That's the requested deviation. Because right now code says you get 1 boat storage building per property. Why would we spread out 3 boat storage buildings on 3 separate properties if we could consolidate on 1? So that's what's on the table tonight. With regard to fire suppression for the marina usage, the marina has already been approved. The only part of the marina that's under Bonner County's purview are the upland accommodations. Where do people go to the bathroom, things like that. The permit for the marina system has been approved by the Army Corps and by the Idaho Department of Lands with regard to floodplain development by Bonner County. So what we're focusing on tonight isn't the marina or fire suppression associated therewith. It's, do we have upland accommodations for that facility? Parking and sanitation primarily. And I'll circle back because there were some questions about that. The fire district had some comments on maybe people parking their cars or their boat trailers out in the road, the private local volume C road that's proposed. This is a private marina. This is not Sandpoint City Beach. There are boat storage buildings proposed for storing trailers and boats associated with this project, there aren't going to be parking of private trailers out in the travelway, or for that matter, any users, to Suzanne's point, there aren't going to be any users of the marina facility parking, or the pavilion facility, parking their car along the roadway. I need to clarify that the pavilion is for the users of the marina. That doesn't mean that you necessarily shall boat into the marina. You can drive to it. The private road standard that's requested is being confused with how we get to the marina. The way we get to the marina is by boat. The way we get to the pavilion is by boat or car. The way we get to our house is by boat or car. The private road standard is related to getting into the pavilion and getting into the lots. It's not how we're going to access the marina. So I hope that helps clarify this, because I'm seeing some issues that are being mixed up. Department of Fish and Game. I appreciate their comment. What they're asking us to do is place a mitigation measure on top of the mitigation measure. So it's a redundancy. What I simply want to offer to the Planning Commission is we have a 60-foot vegetative buffer between the proposed residential lots and Lake Ponderay, where 40 feet is required. We're proposing 60. In exchange for that mitigation measure, 60 feet of veg, we're asking for an increase in impervious surface and a decrease in the setback, all driven by the wider vegetative buffer. Fish and Game is asking for a metal roof effectively on future houses, which I understand, but as I mentioned, it's a mitigation measure on top of a mitigation measure. So I'm not quite sure why we would need to do that when what's been offered is 1.5 times the amount of vegetative buffer. So I would ask the Planning Commission to not consider adding some roofing type condition, because I believe we've already adequately mitigated through the use of a wide vegetative buffer the request for an increase in impervious surface and the reduced setback. Comments regarding screening the storage, landscaping the storage buildings. Those are building location permit related, they're not plan unit development related. It's not that the applicant doesn't have to meet them. It's a question of when. And when is when you get your building permit. That's when you show how you're going to screen, landscape, things of that nature. So to that extent, conditions B1, B2, and B3, they're not plan unit development related. They're building location permit related. So I'm not quite sure why they're attached to the PUD. And more importantly, the way the condition is drafted, it says before you get your PUD permit, you have to address all these minutiae related to future building construction. So I would not disagree with the need to meet the landscaping and the screening. My challenge is, why are we tying that to the issuance of the plan unit development when they're related to building permit? So I would suggest that they not be included. And again, that doesn't mean you don't have to do it. It's just when you do it. When you do it is when you build. To Don's comment on ITD, we requested input from ITD as we did in 2005 when we had nearly 300 units proposed. proposed on this property. There is a, I'm gonna call it eastbound, maybe it's more southbound, right turn decel. There were no subsequent comments by ITD regarding this planning and development. However, as staff had noted, when you do a commercial type building location permit, you have to have a fire chief sign off, which goes to the questions of protecting the boat storage facilities. And you have to have state transportation department sign off with regard to whatever you might need to do to the highway. So we're covered there. As to winter usage of the pavilion, it's an open-air structure. I'm not saying some brave soul might not want to go out there when it's 38 and raining, but it's analogous to Sandpoint City Beach. If you've been to Sandpoint City Beach, there's an open-air pavilion. It's a place to have a barbecue out of the sun in August. So it's important that we understand the limited use of the facility and that it's private, both the marina and the pavilion use. Parking for the pavilion, I did the analysis. I think it's hugely overkill, 50 parking spaces required that are just going to sit there, create stormwater runoff. But regardless, we've got 35 spaces that we were able to afford, where 50 would be necessary if this was a city beach type facility we could drive to. But I do think that there needs to be some on-site parking, not to assume everybody's going to boat in. So we do have 35 parking stalls, whether they're used or not, they're going to be there at least. I think I mentioned the users of the marina, they don't park their boat or their trailer on their property, of which there's only 5 lots proposed. They park it at the boat storage facility. So again, there's no clustering, or if you've ever been to Sandpoint City Beach on 4th of July weekend, what a mess. The building that was shown that Dawn had mentioned with the address, that's going to be torn down. That's one of the remnant office type structures that's been vacant for decades, associated with the Idaho Country Resort. So subject to any comments from the public or questions from the Planning Commission, we would respectfully request approval, it's an actual recommendation for approval of the PUD as petitioned. Give some thought to that draft condition 810. I talked to Tess about it. She extended the courtesy, gave me a phone call. I think that it's redundant. And then conditions B1, B2, and B3 are really building permit related, not PUD related. So I would ask you to give that some consideration. And with that, Mr. Chairman, if you would perhaps keep the hearing open to testimony in the event that I could answer questions that otherwise won't be answered, I would appreciate the chance to do that. Thanks.
Questions for Mr. Taylor?
I have a question.
Please.
So you said the filling and dredging permit has already been issued?
Yes. In addition to the Department of Lands and the Army Corps Marina permit, there is also a Corps permit that has been approved and issued, the number of which I cited in the application for the dredging. Correct. So those areas that show up on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service National Wetland Inventory, they're essentially slough-type backwaters, have been authorized for fill. Correct.
And that's pretty much where your 60-foot setback will come from?
Correct. Yes.
So, just looking at that one comment that came about the roof type and all, and like you put it, double mitigation. So that area, I mean, where those finger sloughs are, those are gonna be dredged and filled. Currently, that's the area, because what we don't have is the superimposed layout of the lots on top of that to show how extensive they are.
It's actually that's the site plan that I turned in that shows that. The site plan that we submitted shows the proposed field and the limits thereof.
Is that the one that's in the staff report?
I can't speak to what staff put in their report, but what I turned in shows the extent of the fill so that you could see all the proposed open space, which is predicated on. the fill.
Yeah, it's, no.
It doesn't really show what was.
Yeah,
It shows, I think it just shows what will be.
it's not a superimposed view, it's a new view.
Yeah.
So I don't know if who's.
You want me to pull up the two
Yeah,
site
if you
plans
would.
that were in the file?
If you would, please.
Yeah,
Just
definitely.
I think we understand it, it's just, the open space tract, which looks like a big backwards L.
This way?
You can kind of see the outline of it even there on the wetland map.
That's the one on the screen.
Yeah, let's put that one.
Yeah, they were struggling because they weren't looking at the site plan.
Well, yeah, we've been, hey, look at that. Yeah, that's right. This explains the whole lot for you.
Well, I was sitting in the back just waiting for Brian to say, get up here.
So this explains a whole lot of things. Very good. Yeah, that should have been that one. That other one seems to be that should be okay.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, since
Go ahead,
I'm familiar with the site plan, the stippled area shows lands proposed to be filled. That will be the vegetative buffer. You can see the turnaround at the north end. You can see the parking ancillary to the pavilion. You can see some remote parking. That's the parking of which 7 spaces are further than 500 feet on the south end. You can see where we're going to place buildings. All the open space, though not a part of this project, you can still see boat slips. I'm not quite sure what all the yellow tags are for. Something might have been lost when it was scanned in. Yes. How many boat slips is there going to be? 105.
105.
Correct.
5 houses.
No. This is a private marina for the Idaho Club. It's not a part of the project.
Yeah.
What is a part of the project are the upland accommodations, which includes the pavilion. That's the upland accommodation. That's all it's.
So. So, all right,
If the applicants said, we don't need to keep people out of the sun, forget the pavilion. They have 105 boat slips approved already.
Yeah.
So now we're down to storing boats and having 5 houses. If the applicant said store your boats somewhere else, then we're down to 5 houses. So the only thing on the table are boat storage buildings that have been consolidated versus spread out. And a place to get out of the sun, which is the upland accommodation, that's what the code calls it, it's just the pavilion. And then 5 homes.
So what's the elevation difference? I mean, I see there, you got setback from the 320-foot setback from summer pool, that dash line, the lighter dash line, and the heavier dash line is the flood easement line of the core. From the roadway there, roughly, what elevation drop is there to the lake? And there's no contours implied or shown on the site plan. In that sense. Anyway.
There's roughly a 10 to 12 foot deviation from the west boundary of the railroad right-of-way to Lake Ponderay, which is why most of this all of this property is within the map flood hazard area.
So the development of those lots and then the open space, that's all, a lot of that is built. And what, if that open space is going to be natural vegetation, what's that going to be?
When you look at what's along Trestle Creek, the alder, that type of woody vegetation, the canary grass, that kind of.
Because I was looking at the aerial
Herb vegetation.
And it appeared that the aerial was taken in 2019, so it's probably good representation of what's here today. There's a lot of vegetation on the site, but it's hard to see in that aerial. I saw dark areas, which are shadow areas from some pretty mature trees down towards, on top of those sloughs, I think. And we can pick that up on the aerial. I don't know if we can do that.
There's actually an island that you can see.
Yeah.
That is approved to be dredged.
Okay. So that's what I was wondering, if that, if it was possible to maintain that native vegetation, such as it is. But it's in that picture, but you can't see it there, because now it's getting there, taken off the overlays. There we go. So there's the island, and you can see that backwater slough, and a lot of vegetation. To be my point. But again, it's hard to tell the extent of the lots and which part of that's going to be, if all that open water slough is going to be filled, and that leaves that vegetation line on that island, but is that dredged off and then changed, or I'm just trying to get a picture of what it's going to look like after.
So the after is what's on that PUD site plan.
Yeah.
It shows the extremity of the fill. Looking at the overlay, at the aerial, if you will, the backwater slough is filled. Then there's a line of vegetation that stays along the existing shoreline, because what is filled, where the shoreline is extended, is that open water slough. Then you have vegetation, then you have a home site, then you have the proposed road.
Because those home sites are 200, 220 feet deep.
The lots.
Lots.
Correct.
But if we've got a 0 backyard setback, those houses are going to be up to 200 feet away from the railroad right away.
Correct.
So I'm still trying to get a picture in my mind where that's going to sit in relation to this, because we've got, I can move up to the aerial here for a minute.
And maybe close the layers and zoom in a little bit and then toggle back and forth.
This is a tree line here. I think most of this is open water. That's what the dark is, but there's this vegetation here, there's vegetation here. This is the island I think you're talking about.
Correct.
So is this going to be gone?
Correct.
Then there's vegetation here and so forth, but if those lots, there we go now.
Want me to put the site plan up?
No, not yet. All right, this is the railroad right away. So that's 100 feet wide. We can scale it 100, 200 feet. The west edge of those lots is going to be in this area, which is about the westerly edge of that bigger slough, which is all going to be filled. and this is gonna be gone. So I'm just trying to see what kind of vegetation, if we can get, is it gonna be lawn? Or is it gonna be, it's gonna be right outside those houses in the common open space, plus the marina is down there in the hook of the slough. And if people are gonna bring their boats into the marina from where else, and they're gonna go up to the pavilion, are they gonna walk over the road enough, or are they gonna go through the open space?
If you can queue up the PUD site
I
plan,
have to go back to site plan.
you have two opportunities. You can walk along the Lake Monterey shoreline to the pavilion, west of the proposed lots,
So in that open space.
correct? Or you can walk south of the southernmost lot
Up the road.
and go up the private access.
Hey Donna, if you bring up the stormwater management plan on the sheet 4 of 5 of the stormwater management and erosion control plan in the file, it has the lake bed topo lines over
Oh,
the plot.
catch that.
Yeah, which page is that?
It's 4 of 5.
It's under documents. I mean, it'll be the drawing of the stormwater plans.
Got that.
This one?
Application. Okay, that's. Single family swale. Huh. Well, that's interesting. So here, we're building in a zero back lot line setback. And there's drainage swales there. Steps all the way. Implying at least that no building is gonna be located whatever the dimensions say. I can't read the dimensions, but 10 by, or
80 by 10.
yeah, I mean, basically the back end of the lots, the furthest downhill portion of the lot, so that it catch the runoff, which is totally appropriate.
You're 83 by 10.
Yeah, yeah, so they're the width of the lot almost, and then 10 feet. So. And it is a 55. The building. All right. Any other questions? Does the, I say that, this is the site, this is stormwater plan, which we don't review, it's just part of it. But, okay, that's irrelevant.
Any other questions for Mr. Taylor?
Can we recap back on the findings of fact number 23, 70% impervious surface within the shoreline area and for lot coverage will be permitted where 35% was allowed? Why are we doubling that, please?
Thanks, Suzanne. As I had mentioned, in order to petition to deviate from anything that's conventional, you have to show how that helps you obtain your design objectives. That's what the code specifies. The request for the increase in impervious surface is because we're offering 1.5 times the amount of vegetative buffer width than prescribed by code. So in exchange for offering 1.5 times the vegetative buffer width than otherwise would be required by code, that warrants an increase in impervious surface. That doesn't mean you get to increase the rate or amount of stormwater runoff. It doesn't mean you get to increase pollutants by increasing impervious surface. Impervious surface is a fancy term for a driveway or a rooftop. You still have to treat stormwater runoff, but by offering a greater amount of vegetative buffer on smaller lots, we're asking for an increase in impervious surface. Still have to treat it all. You can just have more than 35% of rooftop driveway. That's how that works.
But again, that's a request, we could deny that and stick to the 35%.
If you can find how the increase in the vegetative buffer cannot offset an increase in impervious surface and connect those dots, then yeah. You can
I
recommend.
don't think that's a position of the commission. I think we have the opportunity to deny that.
Any other questions for Mr. Taylor? We could discuss that in deliberations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. We'll move on to public comment. Stuart? Chief? Go ahead and come up, please.
Stuart Iger with San Juan Fire, co-chief. My questions were really relative to that marina. I guess it was approved previously. Don't know about that. But you see there's 100 and some odd dock spaces there. Are they considered day use only? And if they are day use only, where are all those vessels going to be coming from to get there? I don't see how that's going to happen if they're going to be available 24 hours a day and permanently docked, relatively permanently docked vessels there. Then you're going to have people getting there via road. As far as I know, there is not any existing facilities over at the Idaho Club to allow people to get from there over to this particular location. But, and that's relative to the traffic, and without knowing what's in the approved marina plan, are there any existing fire protections within that plan? And also, for us to be able to get to it, we have anywhere from, let's say, 200 feet or more that we have to move hose across to be able to fight any fire that's within that particular location. We do have our fireboat that can get in there, but it's a good 15, 16 minutes away at top speed to be able to get within that area to be able to put it. So, yeah, that's my questions relative to how we're going to be able to protect that facility.
I just have a question for you. Chief, where do you currently keep that boat?
Depending upon the time of year, it's in the summertime, it's over at the Windermere Marina. During the wintertime, it's over at Hope Marina.
Okay, so Windermere, that's further down the peninsula than Aspie on Goat?
Correct.
Perhaps you can get those in the summertime. Just thought.
Then we would have to have 2 boats.
Okay.
Not a bad idea, but not quite within our budget.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
For the future.
If there was going to be 300 units in there or 200 some odd units beforehand, I thought there was some potential deal relative to that. But at 5 houses, that's not that big of a big deal to maintain. We've got the 10,000 gallon tank. But you said that there's also 200 gallon per minute capable in those particular wells that you have there. If we can have that particular fire flow, we might even be able to get you down to a 5 rating on that versus an 8.
Thank you, Chief. Dan Ward?
Evening. I'm the property owner.
Can you name and address for the?
Sure.
Please.
Dan Ward. My address is 74 Cougar Trail, Thompson Falls, Montana. I have a tenant currently living in my property, which is just immediately north of the area that's going to be used as storage buildings septic field. So my address is 4 North Park Road. And like I said, I have a RV tenant there, and he uses the property and storage buildings and maintains year-round access. I've approached the county in the past and have been working on developing a building site there. And that building site is to the upper portion of the property as opposed to the lower portion, which would be at the elevation of the boat storage area. In doing so, I've had a survey done in the past few years, and out of that survey, I came to find out, just that, you know, not having a direct effect upon my relationship to the Idaho Club, but in respect to having a neighbor, I found out through the survey that my property goes through the entire portion of the pullout to the north of the property. And out of that, I've requested a easement to that end of the property, and I haven't been granted one. So my only easement is through North Park Road, and which would be past the boat storage area. And just another piece around the state, and as a neighboring property, the state has decided they're not interested in purchasing that pullout property from me. And like I said, they're not interested in granting me an easement up there, but they continue to use my property for public access and for a dumping spot for road riprap. Anyway, what I'm getting at with my easement, it's essential to get to my property. And so far, I've heard nothing from the Idaho Club that would address changes to the easement. And which is, you know, there's some impact that's been addressed in the CUP. I don't believe that the CUP effectively addresses the boat storage buildings insofar as how the access to the building is going to be used to have the possibility of a boat and trailer measuring over 40 feet long. How are they going to access the doors to the boat storage? I'm concerned about the issues with the fire department. There's no turnaround in and around the boathouse, boat storage area. I'm concerned that there isn't a traffic plan that addresses how vehicles moving at 55 miles an hour with a boat and trailer in tow is going to pull to the side of the road coming down the hill into Trestle Creek and safely make a button hook turn and come back toward the boat storage area. If there's someone waiting at the crossing or a boat and trailer truck waiting at the crossing and you have to make that button hook turn, that's even more problematic. I'm concerned with, in front of the boathouse storage, stopping, waiting, parking, blocking traffic to my easement. And again, how they're going to access the doors to that storage area. I'm concerned with, again, with how the CUP is addressing the easement and characterization as low volume road. So they're downgrading the road to narrow it. I'd like to see more information around the septic system because that's going to border my property. There isn't anything outlined in the CUP to give me more information there. And what's already been brought up with 105 boat slips, I don't see where, especially, you know, on a busy summer Saturday morning and a busy Sunday afternoon during the summer, how the traffic's going to move through there easily and how there's going to be near enough parking spaces for visitors to all these different boats, plus the boat owners, how that's going to be maintained. So overall, I'm concerned with the resale of my property and damages that I will incur because of this project. And I'm not opposed to the project. I just want to see these things addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. Mr. Taylor, I know you ready.
Is there anybody online who wants to talk?
Oh, I didn't interrupt. I'm sorry.
No.
Hang on, Marty. Is there anybody online? I don't see anybody over here.
No.
She's. Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Marty Taylor. I appreciate the public comment. If you want me to talk about the boat docks, I can, but it's not part of the project. It's already been permitted. It's not under Bonner County's purview. It's a state and federal permit that has already been issued. That's not to say that the comments aren't applicable to a marina, but that permit's been issued. Comments related to fire flow for boat storage, that's on the table. The pavilion, the houses, that's on the table too. So I'm just trying to focus on the proceeding, which is the PUD for a pavilion, some boat storage, and 5 houses. That's what we're here to discuss. I am aware of Dan Ward's easement. That came up in the town report. If I could get Tessa to queue up a different map, we'll focus on that. When we looked at this in 2005, we noticed that there is in fact an easement. That stop right there, perfect, thank you. There is in fact an easement for ingress and egress of an undefined width and an undefined location. That's what we refer to as a blanket easement. The property to the north, well, I think you worked for a title company, Suzanne, so you've seen all that.
No, I did formally, but I have one that goes across my property.
So that's no problem. That doesn't mean it's not there. So the property to the north, the Ward property, has the absolute right to cross what we've labeled as the proposed utility lot. And being aware of this access easement shows up in today's title reports as well. And having survey located the travel way, we absolutely laid out that utility lot with all the improvements west of that access to the Ward property. That's important, that the Ward property access not be impeded. With regard to the leach field, the Panhandle Health District has already approved that northern community leach field area. It meets all the setbacks from surface water. That's what Don Davis had mentioned. He said, what's that 300 and some foot setback line? Well, what does that have to do with this project? That's to make sure that we're at least 300 feet from Lake Ponderay, because that's the separation between surface water and a community leach field. So that's in excess of that 300 feet. So the septic site's approved. It's all designed west of the physical Ward access, so as to not impede that access. That access and the way to get into this utility lot is east of the railroad track. So you're not going to be stuck on the railroad track with your truck and your boat trailer trying to access the utility lot, because that utility lot access you get to without crossing the railroad. So there's no threat there. You're not going to get stuck on the tracks. The last thing that we looked at with regard to the storage buildings is to make sure that there is a sufficient apron. Think of it as a driveway so that you can maneuver a boat, which they often disconnect from the tow vehicle. That's how these boat storage facilities work. You don't try to back your boat into a trailer, into a storage building. You disconnect it, and the operator of the storage facility, they have like a motorized dolly, for lack of a better term, where you can maneuver those kinds of trailers into a facility. It's like what Big Lake does in Sable. You don't drive your truck in and try to maneuver a truck and trailer inside of the building. So we have designed this to make sure you can get in and out. Not the client, not the customer. The operators of the storage facility that know what they're doing, not me, are able to get in and out with a trailer, with a boat, not impede the access, not cross the tracks. So I think we've addressed all that, but I want to emphasize that we are aware of that access to the Ward property, and everything that we've designed is west of it, so as to not conflict with that access. If I've missed anything, let me know. If not, again, we would respectfully request approval of the project or recommendation thereof as submitted. And then again, if there's questions before you close it to testimony, I would be happy to answer them. I'm not allowed to introduce new evidence. That means there's a new round of comments, but just what we've already gone over. If you have questions, I'd be happy to expand upon that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Okay, we're gonna close the public comment and open up, well, first, any clarifications by staff?
Yeah, I do. I have some clarifications. One of the things is in regards to the B conditions, B1 through 3, those that would be required prior to issuance. Those are the landscaping plans and the construction plans for that commercial structure, or for the 3 of them. And what those would have shown was, where those doors would be. We would have had the elevations, we would have floor plans, most likely a site plan showing where on the actual property they're going to be to meet some setbacks. And so that's why we want to have those. It is essentially part of the planning and development. And those are standards that staff has to look at when reviewing for the planned unit development of that use. This is a commercial use allowed in the recreational zone with standards. And so it was part of the PUD, and so that's why we made it conditions. They would have probably clarified some questions for the public, Mr. Ward about his questions regarding door placement, where they're going to be going in and out of, because it would show the location and again, the elevations.
Thank you.
And so we just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. So now we'll call for open discussion and deliberation by the commissioners.
Whole lot to consider. A lot of pieces to this book. The idea of parking on the street and the trailers on the street, you cannot tell me, somebody's not gonna be like, yo, Joe, you have that nice house on the lake, can I come, you know, and just like go on top of your place? Yes, it's gonna happen, yes, there are gonna be boat trailers on the street. You can't say, no, only the owners would ever use that. Don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself tonight, don't fool yourself what the future is. So we have to be aware that we have to make sure that you're not going to be lining the streets with boat trailers. It's going to make it hard for the fire engines to get in should there be an accident or the emergency vehicles. Because it will fill up the street. Don't fool yourself. It is summer in Sandpoint.
This is a private place as well. I don't know if you've been to the Idaho Club, but they don't even let you have a vehicle in your driveway older than like 2015.
It's private to it's private to the residents and their guests. Well, so we want to make sure, because that was something that was brought up in regards to the parking of the trailers along the street, that would maybe hinder the access in and out for safety. Look at safety issues. I don't think we need to decrease the road conditions, nor do I see a need to decrease the impervious surfaces. Wildlife and our eagles and everything else that's using what's currently going to be filled in didn't ask for a lot more impervious surface. If 35% is allowed, I think 35% is appropriate. This is Bonner County, we need to remember that. I just don't want to see it turn into LA, and which we have, you know, we're making sure we have beautiful green lawns and we're not taking care of our wildlife and our shorebirds that we value. It's a big part of Bonner County and the lake.
I believe the only thing we're talking about here, perhaps, Jessica, you're in the right direction if I'm wrong, but we're not, what we're looking at here is a site plan for those 5 home sites, pavilion, common lot, and also the area for those storage. The permit, the permit's not in front of us for the U.S. Army Corps and the field, the dredging field, that's not in front of us at all.
But part of it is condition number 23, which is to allow for 70% of impervious surface and 35% out there.
On those 5 lots, but the
Right,
dredge and fill, that's not even in
Right.
there.
Right, so but that is part of it, as I said. And I think 35% is appropriate.
As well as a reduction in the setback. Both. mean, that's, I don't know how to evaluate it from a technical perspective. I understand they have more vegetative buffer than required, but they've asked for two things in return for that. 0 setback and a doubling of impervious coverage essentially.
Well, I believe that the whole idea about the impervious area is go ahead and make sure that it has that area and that chance, so it goes ahead and has that stormwater, so to speak. So anything has to slope it and drain that's heading towards the lake, is going to have to go through that area. That's going to have to be vegetated. And that portion is being mitigated. I understand, yes, they're asking for is no setback.
Well, and that's, like I pointed out, based on the stormwater plan, the westerly 5 feet or so of each of those lots, where they've requested 0 setback for buildings, is a stormwater swell. Based on that, if that plan is put on the ground the way it is, there's not gonna be buildings within 5 feet. So, you know, maybe that rear yard setback of what, 40 feet? Could be 30 or 25. It doesn't, and I couldn't see, and I can't bring up the stormwater plan file, but I couldn't read the box that calculated those drainage swales to see what impervious surface each lot would contribute, but it's in that box. So we can bring that up again and look at it.
That same photo?
Yeah, that one stormwater plan that you had up previously.
This one right here?
Yeah, so where it says single-family swales toward the top of the picture, there's a bunch of numbers in there, and it's the calculations for determining, there we go. All
It
right.
assumes 8,000 square feet of impervious
Uh-huh.
lot.
So, and those are, what, those lots are 13 to 18,000 square feet? 14. Yeah, so 8,000 square feet is 50% or less coverage. I don't know.
I would assume the drive for the 0 foot setback would be to accommodate the storage buildings against the railroad right away.
Well, I suppose, yeah, the setback, it didn't just say the residential ones, did it? Missouri wouldn't say move out because there's all kinds of buildings that are built right up against the right of way. Lots of them. And it really doesn't matter, their right of way is 100 feet total width at each side of their center line, so you have 50 feet from the center track over to that line. That's plenty enough for them to have an access road in there, maintenance road and so forth. So they're not, they would, I doubt that they would say anything about setback. But that is interesting there where here the PED has requested 70% coverage, which figure out 70% of each one of those lots, and it's a lot more than 8,000 square feet of impervious surface. Which would mean, if that's the place for the stormwater swales, they'd be bigger than that. They'd be the same width, but the depth, the other dimension, instead of 10 by 80, they may be 20 by 80. So again, you don't put structure, you don't believe you put structure in a drainage swale. It's kind of hard to maintain if you do even the deck. You don't know whether there's plenty of decks that are in drainage swale. They're not supposed to be.
Well, up above in the proposed condition, that 8,000 square feet, it says 4,000 square feet of roof and 4,000 square feet of gravel and paved area.
Ah. Okay. So we've got some internally conflicting numbers here.
How's that kind of conflicted?
Well, just right there. And granted, those are typical, but that, is the stormwater plan approved?
Yes, it was approved by our county engineer.
Okay.
So, based on this assumption, right?
Yeah.
So it's based on an 8,000 square foot impervious
He had the
coverage.
entire, the file with all the calculations.
And the calculations are based on the catalog of each item, so it could be a relative thing.
Yeah, it could be, an indication, so. But the first thing for sure is, yes, the drainage swales are gonna be on the lowest part of the lot. That's why I was asking, because it shows slope toward the water. So that back, whatever, at least by that definition, 10 feet, or not 15 or 20, of those lots is gonna be drainage swale. Kind of superimposed on a zero backyard setback. You know what I mean? Recall, could you zoom out on that again, please? We'll look over there at the storage. Stormwater plan. So that shows,
Down here?
again, well, just right there, see there, the westerly edge of the utility lot is designated as the area for the stormwater swales. So again, zero backyard, which I guess that would be the backyard for that lot, against the railroad right away, would be essentially unachievable to go to zero setback because of the swale.
Yeah, don't assume anything. You're gonna create the deviation. Assume that that's what it's going to be.
Now you're saying, excuse me, you're saying don't assume.
Well, right, I mean, if they're asking for a zero setback, that's what they're asking for, right?
Yeah. But they've already got an approved stormwater plan.
Yep.
Which says this is where it's gonna be. And it's gonna be roughly these dimensions.
Yep. We'll review all that at building permit stage.
Okay.
So about, can I ask you a question?
It's a
So the relationship to approval and building location permits, when they go to get it, whether they move the building shape or move them on the property, they still have to accomplish that drainage structure. Things can change and move as long as they still are hitting the cubic feet of
Right,
swell.
and sends this back for review, yeah.
It still comes down right, but they say, the other picture, the other site plan showed X feet by X feet for storage units. So the impervious area, the roof area, but going in, that's what it looks like. And that therefore the drainage plan is based on that, so many square feet, the parking, the paved surface and all that. So that's the calculation basis for.
Yeah, what you're ultimately approving is the site plan. And so when we review a BLP, we will look at that site plan for all of that standard
Site
sites.
plan again and make sure that there's no deviation.
So, okay.
Any other clarifications from staff? Folks happy with your deliberations?
Can you talk about the downgrading of the road? The need to downgrade the road? And it didn't have enough substance there to downgrade the roads.
They're not downgrading the road, it's not building it to.
So you know, the private road standard is, somebody can tell us that again, I think it's 28, here's explained to the staff. 28, I think, of the total road surface with obviously a 22-foot travel way. So therefore,
28 foot easement.
no, that's about
30-foot easement,
30-foot easement.
Right.
a 30-foot road easement, the 20-foot wide.
This is number
Travel
21.
2-foot wide.
And then standard 20-foot wide standard local. Will be approved in low volume local resident of a 20-foot wide travelway.
Commission, I just want to clarify a couple of things about the roads and the setbacks. In the staff report, it did state that the 0-foot setback is only for the recreational and the residential lots. So it doesn't have anything to do with the commercial, they'll have their regular setbacks. And then with the improvements made to the road, if it was going to be that public standard, it would be 28 feet, which would be in excess for these 5 residential lots. And what it is, it's not connecting to any other residential lots. It's 5 places where people will be living and then a recreational lot where people will be seemingly coming and going. So that's what the difference would have been. It would have been 28 feet would have been required if this had been the public road, but with it being the private road standards, we're looking at it being the 22.
Okay, so 6 and 3-foot shoulders rather than 4-foot shoulders rather than 1-foot shoulders. Like 20. And that's to be a paved road,
Mhm.
a residential road. Is across the utility lot, is that a paved road as well?
I believe all the roads are going to be paved. That's what was
No, because
put
I
in the
think
application.
the rest of it implies, based on the stormwater plan, that the space between the roadways and the buildings is paved. I don't, I have a friend over that talks about that, but I don't see it. But I assume that, maybe that's a, well, generally it would be, because you have to have a surface like that to maneuver on. But the width of the dedicated roadway over there that would supply Mr. Ward with access to his land, that's apparently, graphically, it looks the same as the 20-foot roadway. Okay. Would you put the staff report up there again, please, because it had that additional.
Do you want to see the other site plan that was in the staff report?
No, just the staff report, the conditions,
Oh, the conditions.
because you had,
The 3 at the end.
you had recommended,
Yes. Pull that up for you.
yeah, an A10, I want to look at A10 again.
That's in regards to the comment from Fishing Game and about their concern over that 0-foot wetland setback and then the 70% impervious surface.
Okay, so in order to understand that, I would hope that Fishing Game understood it, because there's open stormwater and wetland area that's not gonna be there anymore because the Corps permit to fill, dredge and fill. So where's does the site plan adequately show where the remaining wetland is?
That open space is going to have portions of it along the shoreline, but that's also where the wildlife habitat, that's what they're talking about, the concern with it in majority. It's white-tailed deer habitat, and so they're concerned about that.
Yeah, it needs down to the water's edge for drinking.
150 slips, they're not using the 35 parking spaces, right?
Based off of the information provided in the application, no, that they would be boating there to use those dock sites, but they're not going to be driving their into the boats.
So they're not gonna moor there.
Not from what the application implies, no.
Okay.
It's more of they come there, they use the property, but then they're gonna end up leaving. They're not gonna come there, somebody else is gonna meet them there with a car, and so there's gonna be tons of traffic going.
I mean, we're not really here to talk about.
I'm just trying to figure out when we're gonna have
Marina.
reduced spaces and we have the 150 slips. I'm just trying to make sure that we have enough parking and roadway is what I'm saying, safety.
If it's the marina for the Idaho Club, I want to assume that people from the Idaho Club are going to drive and park there.
I hate that word assume, I just wanna look at what is on the map. What guys we have actually.
Well,
So then we shouldn't even be talking about the marina.
Marina's already.
But we have to look at the roads and the parking spaces, if they're gonna be accessible for those people that are accessible.
I don't think so.
We're assuming that.
Supposedly already taken care
That's
of.
not.
It's not, yeah, it's not, it's correct. This is not, it's not part of the application, not our job to solve that problem.
Okay, so reducing the spaces doesn't make sense. That's my question.
The spaces were all for the pavilion.
I think she's asking, does it make sense to reduce it from the 50?
Right.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say, for safety purposes.
Because
We're reducing the roads, we're reducing the spaces, does that make sense? That's all the question. We have safety issues here, we do have an obligation to the citizens of the county for safety.
Clarification for the parking reduction, that's part of the standard for the assembly building, for the pavilion. That's where that comes into play, and so it would normally require 50 spaces because it's going to be a 5,000 square foot structure, and that's where they're asking for the reduction to the 32, 35 spaces. For the upland parking for the marina, they're asking for no parking.
So, if there's more information that you need, yeah, we can move this forward, or we can.
We could go ahead and continue or remand this file here shortly. We've got 4 or 3 other files in front of us that we need to get here. We're gonna be here till midnight, so.
You could also continue, I mean, you can also make a recommendation and move it forward. You can adjust the things you want to adjust and move it forward. Right, Matt, make them right.
I didn't want to leave that out.
There's just so much to this, I think it should be continued, so we just have more opportunity to explore so many more avenues.
Okay, so I think we need to move forward here so we keep everybody.
Continue, there needs to be specific things we need to look at. Specific things you want addressed. Because I don't know that there's anything specific that can answer those questions. I don't know what more information we can provide you to answer those questions. We may just need to move forward with recommendation.
So
Ready to make a motion.
I'm going to close deliberations by the commission and call for a motion to approve, deny, continue, or remand this file, CUP 0006-20, conditional use permit, the Idaho North Lakes PUD, Valiant Idaho LLC.
Commissioner Bradish, I move to recommend approval. I move to recommend approval of this project file CUP 0006-20, a conditional use permit for a large-scale mixed-use plan unit development, finding that it is in accordance with general and specific objectives of the Barn County Comprehensive Plan and Barn County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law and based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing. I further move to recommend adoption of the following findings of fact and conclusions of law as written. The action that could be taken to obtain this conditional use permit is to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in the taking of private property.
Commissioner Bradish has made a motion to approve the project. We have a second.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Linsky, I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Yeah, does that include condition A10 as suggested by the staff?
I don't think so. With the 6
Yes or no? You made the
No.
motion.
I still second it.
Okay. Just want to clarify that.
We've clarified the motion. I call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
4 to 2.
4 to 2.
Okay. Motion passes. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break and we will be right back. And we'll move on to the Kelly file. Okay, let's get rolling here again. Our next file is variance 0030-20 Waterfront setback variance. Mary and Joseph Kelly are requesting an 18-foot waterfront setback of 40 foot is required. So construct a second-story addition to replace the roof on an existing boathouse. Property is zone recreation. The project is located off Lower Rock Harbor Road, or Rock Harbor, in section 27, township 56, north, range 1, west Boise Meridian. Any conflict of interest? Seeing none, would staff present the project, please?
All right, thank you, Commissioner, for the introduction. I'm staff planner Amanda Lima, and since you did such a great introduction, I'm just going to dig right in here.
And
Speak
you
a
speak
little
up a
louder.
little bit,
Yeah.
please? Thank
You
you.
bet. So a little bit about the request. What we're working with today is an existing boathouse that was built in 1959. The proposal is to add a second story to the boathouse with the addition of a new roof. The existing structure is 18 feet from the ordinary high water mark, and the second story addition and the new roof will not project farther into the existing setback. So they're doing like for like, just going higher. It will not project farther into that encroachment of the waterfront setback. So here's some photos of the original structure that the applicants provided staff with. You can see the flat roof that was on the foundation of the boathouse. This was the condition that the boathouse was in when the homeowners purchased the property. They've since started to try to repair the boathouse as there were chemicals stored inside and there was some leaching that was occurring into the lake. So they're trying to clean up the boathouse and repair that roof. So here are some elevation drawings that were supplied by the applicant. I think this does a good job of showing what they're going to do with the existing boathouse. The foundation will not change, and a portion of the deck on the second story will be over the existing foundation. The overhang of the new roof will be the same as the overhang of the previous roof. So no farther projections. They're just going up a story. And you can see that their second story will allow them to access the building a little bit better because it does drop off. So they'll now be able to walk through on one level into the boathouse. So just some site data, there was an aerial of Lower Rock Harbor Road and the parcel in question. We are located off of Lower Rock Harbor Road, which is a gravel road that is accessed off of Garfield Bay Road, so we're in the same area. The site does contain map slopes, as you saw from the photos. It's fronting Lake Padre, and the entire parcel, lucky for the applicants, are zoned, is in a special flood hazard zone of D, so they will not need flood permits in order to put the second-story addition onto the structure. Some of the services in the area, they're serviced by Lake Water, individual septic, Selkirk Fire Department. Their power comes from Northern Lights, and they're in School District 84. So part of the variance process is to examine 3 standards for Bonner County Revised Code. The first standard, as we're all familiar with, is to assess whether or not conditions apply to the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone or vicinity. So the structure, as I mentioned previously, was built in 1959 per our assessor records, so it's a grandfathered structure. I did do a little bit of analysis along the subdivision and found that adjoining lots do not feature boathouses. And I do have a photo of that area. So this is the only boathouse in that section of shoreline, which I found to be pretty interesting. So it is a unique situation to that area. In addition, the applicants did not have control over the location of the existing boathouse. In order to modify the boathouse, a variance would be required. So here's the aerial of that, that subdivision along the water. And so I went through parcel by parcel and looked it up in our assessor's records to see if there were other boathouses in the same vicinity, and there were not. This is unique to this area, or at least this small section of shoreline. So standards review B is whether or not special conditions and circumstances result or do not result from the actions of the applicant. As I stated earlier, the boathouse was built in the late 50s. The applicants purchased their property in 2018. So they did not create this hardship. They didn't place the boathouse where it exists. They inherited a grandfathered structure that was in poor condition, and in order to modify it, this variance would be required. Standards review C is examining whether granting of the variance is not in conflict with the public interest. There's no indication that the public health, safety, or welfare will be negatively impacted by this proposal. Again, the structure is not going to further encroach into the waterfront setback, and no new impervious surfaces are proposed. So it will just be a projection taller into the sky. We routed for agency review on November 17th. We received 2 no comments, one from PhD, though they did make a comment about the main home and finding no septic records. We did pass these comments on to the applicant, so they have a copy. DEQ provided a no comment response. We did receive a comment from Idaho Fishing Game, and they had stated that if the original foundation is used and the roof's footprint is not increased, it is not expected that this would have a negative effect on water quality. All other agencies did not respond. We received 3 public comments, 1 in opposition and then 2 in favor of the project. The comment in opposition basically stated that they believe that a 50% variance seems excessive. They expressed concerns that if this is approved, that the homeowners may request a deviation for their cabin. I read more into their comment, and I don't know if they realized that the footprint was existing and no new encroachment is being requested. So I don't know if they just didn't understand the variance or what was going on there, but some of their comment was confusing. And you do have a copy of that comment in your folder. 2 of the other neighbors did comment in favor. They said that the landowners are doing an excellent job of cleaning up the property and the structure was in major disrepair. So they're very happy it's being fixed and they support this variance. So staff in general and in conclusion concluded that this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code based off of the findings of fact and the information I provided in this PowerPoint. These are the 6 findings of fact which we've spoken about in the conditions and the standards of review. At this time, that would conclude my presentation. Does the commission have any questions?
Any questions for staff?
I guess, yeah, going back to the comment that you mentioned, is there a cabin in the setback as well?
I'm not sure because I didn't have setbacks on the site plan for it. And the site plan wasn't quite to scale. I did look at the aerial and it looks like they're right on the 40-foot setback because I was curious. But again, using our measuring tool isn't 100%. It looked like they were right on it. The applicants are here and they may be able to speak.
Perhaps when they testify if they wish to answer the question. Thank you. The Kellys, do you want to address the commission at all?
Sure.
State your name, full names, and address, please. Ladies first.
Hi, I'm Mary Kelly. I live at 4604 South Magnolia Street in Spokane. And
I'm Joseph Kelly. I also live at 4604 South Magnolia Street in Spokane, Washington. We also own this property at 97 Lower Rock Harbor Road, Sago, Idaho. We appreciate your time. I learned a lot in that last episode. Hopefully it doesn't take quite as long. We are just looking for a variance for a very simple boat structure that has been there since 1959. When we purchased the property a couple of years ago, it was an absolute hazard to the lake. In fact, I don't think there was a bigger hazard on the lake for a recreational property. It was someone for 40, 50 years who had stored oil, gas, diesel, acetone, batteries. I think we took probably 24 loads to the dump into hazardous waste, and it was just an endless 2-year cleanup. So as you saw from the pictures, it was an absolute flat roof, had 0 pitch on it, and it was composite shingles. It was horrible. It was leaking. It was, every board in it was had mold on it, and we felt that was a health hazard as well. So our goal was to just take the entire roof off, put a pitched metal roof on there, and to clean it up. That's about it. We have some pictures too, if you want to see what it was like before inside the boathouse.
Amanda also should.
Okay.
Yeah, a bit more. Any questions?
Any questions of the applicant? Clarify? No? Okay,
Okay, great, thank you.
thank you. So we have, close that and we'll open it up for public comment. Lucas still here?
Yep.
You'd like to speak?
That's for the other.
Oh, it is, I'm sorry, okay, that is for the, I have my papers. Okay, so being there's no public comment for that, we can move to, if you guys don't have any other questions, we can go ahead and move to deliberations.
So much of our business is take care of what was done years ago. As present owners deal with the lovely things left over from the past. And again, the neighbor's comment about, well, this may apply to the house too. That's not the subject because they're not proposing to do anything to the house, and that may come later. You don't know. But dealing with boathouse at this point, and there are surprisingly few boathouses on the lake. It's an interesting situation. But I think there used to be a lot more, but they're gone. They don't last long. And this one is, I'm more familiar with the boathouse that's half in and half out of the water. So it's got pilings or something in the water, and you drive inside that and so forth. They run. They end up falling down into the water. This one's on the lake. So I think this is pretty straightforward.
And in fact, we're bulking up, we're not bulking out. And just, I appreciate you getting all of that chemicals out of
Yeah,
there.
it was-
People didn't even know it's being stored and it was.
Garfield Bay's a lot cleaner.
Any other comments? Okay. So we'll close our deliberations and I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, continue, or renew the file.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Linscott, I move to approve this project file B0030-20, an 18-foot waterfront setback where 40 feet is required to construct a secondary story addition or replace a roof on an existing boathouse. Find that it is in accordance with Water County Revised Code as enumerated in the following conclusions of law. And based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing, I further move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusions of law as written. The action that could be taken to obtain the variance is to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in taking the private property.
Okay, Commissioner Linscott has made a motion to approve file B0030-20, waterfront setback variance, Mary and Joseph Kelly. I'll entertain a second.
Commissioner Glassdoor, I'll second.
Commissioner Lasso has seconded the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sorry it was a long night.
That's okay.
Have a safe.
I learned a ton.
Thank you.
Okay.
For the record, can you ask if there's any objections?
You didn't ask if there were objections.
Any objections?
We just did
Only
voice
So we
vote.
have 6-0 and I can't vote, but is there a nay?
Thank you.
There we,
When you do a voice vote, you're not counted.
well, I said 6-0.
You know, but
No, I understand.
we didn't confirm that, because you gotta see it.
I got
Right.
you. I could. Okay.
Roberts is rolling over his grave.
No, he was. Okay, we're gonna move to file B0029-20, street and waterfront setback variance. Kathy Amistiso, is that even close?
She's not here, but that's close, yes.
Okay, sir, thank you very much. Staff, would you?
So it's Josh that's presenting. He's probably getting his screen ready to share.
Okay, so I should probably finish reading it. Is requesting an 8-foot 6th street setback where 40 foot is required, and 10-foot waterfront setback where 40 foot is required. The variance would bring the existing structure into compliance and allow the addition of a room over the garage. Property is zone recreation. Project is located on Garfield Bay in section 16, township 61 north, range 4, west Boise Meridian.
Commissioners, can you hear me?
Yeah, you got you, Josh.
Wondering if you can see that screen.
Hang on, Josh. Any conflicting interests? Okay. Go ahead, Josh.
Josh, you're not sharing your screen.
There you go. You're good.
Hold on. Yeah, I just can't see what screen is up. This one's up? Oh. Is that what's up? Okay, Commissioners, this is variance 0029-20, Amistoso. The applicants are requesting an 8-foot 6 street setback where 40 is required and a 10-foot waterfront setback where 40 is required. This variance will allow additional living space to be built above the existing garage. It's up at Priest Lake. It's on the west side, and then in the lower photo you can see that it's kind of a small lot, and the existing home it takes up kind of the entire envelope of the building lot. Here's some pictures from on site. We've got a picture up top. It's from the road looking at the existing home and the garage. The space to be built is going to be above this garage. And the lower photo obviously is from the lake side. This is a site plan that was submitted. You can see that it references the setbacks and gives you an idea of there's not a lot of buildable space on that lot. It is a lakefront home as seen in the pictures. It's in the, it's a platted lot of Granite Creek subdivision lot 6. Its size of the lot is 0.15 acres, pretty small, and it's zoned recreational, and the land use is resort community, and it's accessed off of South Granite Bay Road. It does not contain any map slopes. It's pretty flat. Doesn't have any wetlands. It does front Priest Lake, and Jason Johnson, certified floodplain manager, commented on this, referencing that the parcel is a combination of the Zone D and Zone AE per the FIRMA panel, and then reference that a variance by itself does not approve development as defined by BCRC Title 14. The development proposed under this variance will require a BLP, at which point another flood review will occur. Based on the submitted site plan, the development in question under this variance will occur within the Zone D. No further floodplain review is required on this proposal. Its services is private well. Its sewage is the Granite Reader Sewer District, West Priest Lake Fire, Vista Power, and the Bonner School 83. We sent this variance out for agency review, and we did not receive any comments from agency, and no public comments were received. Some of the things that we review on these variances, the conditions apply to the property that do not apply generally to other properties in the same zone or vicinity, which conditions are a result of lot size, shape, topography, or other circumstance over which the applicant has no control. Lot 6 of the Stevens Granite Creek subdivision is one of the smallest lots in the subdivision and is additionally encumbered by the shoreline setback. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from the action of the applicant. The applicant purchased this particular property in 2009 as it is today, and played no part in creating the subdivision or the building of the house. The granting of the variance is not in conflict with the public interest, in that it will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, or materially injurious to properties or improvements in the vicinity of the subject parcel. Adding a second story, this bulk vertical to the garage will not impact the public health and safety or welfare. Staff conclude this project is consistent with Bonner County Revised Code, and I'll take any questions if you have them at this time.
Thank you. Any questions, staff?
Yeah, Josh, this is John Davis. I might be missing something. I can see on the site plan.
Yeah, do you want me to go back to that, Don?
Yeah, would you put it up there, please? Okay. All right, so it shows, you can easily see the 5'6" setback.
Josh, can you make that bigger?
I don't think I can, not in this window sharing, sorry. I see the 5'6" on the north side of the garage.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
From Granite Way. So, and the other request is for,
No. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not really clear, those numbers in red and what they apply to.
It's not. So the 5'6" is that boat launch access that's on the north side. Let me go. Let's see if I can get a better picture here.
George, the site just north.
So the garage here on the north is the 5 foot, and then the 18 is to the west towards Granite. To the existing road there is close to the easement, but it's not exact. I don't know if that helps kind of understand where that sits in relationship to the surrounding property lines.
So Josh, it's the 8'6" from the front right corner of the garage if you were facing the garage out to the street.
So I believe that that is incorrect. That's to the edge of the dirt road, but not to the property line. And that's how I interpreted that site plan, just because the little red arrow stops at what seems to be the dirt on the road and not the property line.
On the north side of subject of this property, that is common access, I do believe, for some other folks in the subdivision to the back. So that provides them a boat launch and access onto the lake. This house, when it was constructed, they were just going to put the roads up there. They weren't like our resorts are developed. You know, you put in a house and then you go kind of around it. And that's about what this is, because if you were to go down that road and go straight, you'd be in part of the garage. So it's just always been an offset.
Yeah.
And it is a very small site.
So just by going up on the garage, it also doesn't, the garage itself doesn't meet the lakeshore setback. It's what's requested for the variance for the lakeshore. At 10. That would be off that existing deck. So
Which would be on the east side there.
that's just to make the existing structure, which is non-conforming, give it a variance so that it's.
So it's conforming, correct.
On the proposed construction over the garage is offset a portion of the house.
Yeah, sorry.
And the one picture from the front, if you're on the lake, out on the dock, taking that picture back, you can see where it offsets.
The doorway back there goes into the garage.
And then just to the very left is where the boat launch.
Oh, yeah.
Common area.
Right. That's what wishes. We'll see what.
Any other questions for Josh? Okay.
So there is no.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Okay. Are you representing the applicant? Come on up and state your name and address for the record.
Lucas Dolan, 632 West Element Road.
And I was a contractor that she hired to fill out the paperwork and figure out a cost to it. The garage currently is actually destroyed by a tree. It's got blue tarp over it. And rather than rebuild the footprint, she wanted to explore doing next bedrooms and bathrooms of the garage. Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay.
Thank you.
No public comment to this project, obviously, so we can open it up for commissioners' deliberation.
Well, again, history staring us in the face. Kind of makes you wonder, well, like we were discussing with the commissioner earlier, you know, some people would like to see us have a 75% setback. And 20 years from now, if that ever happens, people need to talk in 20 years from now about that doggone Mr. Davis without him. Yeah, they will. 20 years from now, you can name the food. Yeah, exactly. By then we won't care.
Maybe we will.
But I'll still be. No, he's gonna be still working on a comprehensive. Still be working.
Well, that'll be the new one.
Adding, with this one, adding onto that garage is better than adding on to the main home, trying to put a story on that back one takes more to run off.
Oh, sure.
And you're not increasing actually the impervious area by doing that.
It's the same for snow slot. Everything else.
Yeah.
I guess that my proving experience would be to build the second story.
Sure. Yeah.
Just
That was the best.
Really with the rest, unless you want to clarify that in your motion. So we'll close our deliberations and I'll entertain a motion to approve, deny, continue, file B0029-20.
Commissioner Reed, I move to approve this file B0029-20, requesting an 8-foot 6-inch setback for 40 is required and a 10-foot waterfront setback for 40 is required. Finding that it is in accordance with the Bonner County Revised Code as enumerated in the code including the law, and based upon the evidence submitted at the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received at this hearing, I further move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusion of law as written. The action that can be taken to obtain the variance to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in taking the private property.
Commissioner Reed has made a motion to approve file B0029-20 street and waterfront setback variance, capping, and the ski slope. Is there a second?
Commissioner Frank, I'll second that.
Commissioner Frank has seconded the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to file CUP 0005-20. Conditional use permit, Priest Lake Storage. Mike Bills is seeking approval to construct 2 mini storage buildings totaling 6,250 square feet, tax lot 21, a vacant 20,037 square foot parcel in rural service center zone district. Project is located on Highway 57, Section 25, Township 16 North, Range 5, West, Boise, Marine.
Thanks, Commissioners. As stated, CUP 0005-20, Priest Lake Storage. The applicant, as stated, is seeking approval to construct 2 mini storage buildings totaling 6,250 square feet. It's again located on the west side of Priest Lake, along the west side of Highway 57 near the golf course. If that kind of gives you a general area. The environmental factors, the site does not contain any slopes, it's flat, it doesn't have any wetlands. Site does not contain a river stream frontage. And from our Jason Johnson, certified floodplain manager, that no further floodplain review is required on this proposal. The services is outlet bay, water and sewer. Again, sewage is the same. Fire is West Priest Lake Fire. Power is provided by Northern Lights, and it's School District 83. This is the proposed site plan, and the 2 buildings that we're looking at. There's actually are the white in the upper center. So there's 4 parcels here, but we're only focused on the one in the center with those the 2 buildings. So we sent this out for agency review, and we did receive a no comment from DEQ. No other agencies responded, and we did not receive any public comments. The applicant did send in a stormwater plan, and it's spelled out here in this site plan. You can better see the 2 proposed buildings in red here, and can see the property lines that are outlined in black to give a better understanding of the setbacks. There are some conditions of approval, standards for standard continued permit conditions to be met for the life of the use. A1, the use shall be developed and shall be operated in accordance with the approved site plan. 2, the conditional use permit shall not supersede the deed restrictions. 3, all site plans setbacks shall be met. 4, the conditional use permit shall expire if not used within 2 calendar years from the date of approval or once issued. If the use is not commenced within 2 calendar years from the date of issuance, at any time prior to the expiration date of the conditional use permit, the applicant may make a written request to the planning director for an extension of the conditional use permit for the period of up to 2 years. 5, the applicant shall install prior to ground disturbing activity as all temporary erosion control measures as designed and approved. The applicant shall install upon completing ground disturbing activities and shall maintain thereafter all permanent erosion control and stormwater management measures as designed and approved. A6, all signage shall conform to the standards set forth in Bonner County Code 12-44. All lighting shall conform to the standards in 12-453. And then solid waste collection areas shall conform to the standards set forth in 12-53. And 9, a landscaping plan, Bonner County Code 12-486B shall be submitted to the planning department at the time of building location permit. And it would take any questions at this time that you might have.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, Commissioner Fresh, I have a question about, maybe this is just for my information of having your stormwater management plan being on a separate parcel. Is there anything in the code that addresses that, or is that just allowed?
So the parcel is owned by the same individual.
Okay, so as far as the code goes, is there any ramifications of that long term? Is there a deed restriction for the individual parcel?
I'm sorry, you're cutting out a little bit.
I think the question is, if he was to break up the project, what would they do with the stormwater for the parcels that do not have retention storage?
So that might be a deed restriction that might be a good idea there. So if they were to separate or sell a parcel off, that the stormwater would be an easement or for the stormwater on that property. But that might be a question for the applicant. The properties pictured are all owned by the same individual.
So, Josh, this is Don Davis.
Yeah.
Just another question, kind of background as well. I seem to recall when the rest of the property here, the appears from the lot lines that there's 5 parcels or lots. I don't know if this was subdivided. I don't recall that. But did the rest of the parcel go through a conditional use permit?
So the parcel, so there's a conditional use permit on the parcel to the south that has the stormwater on it. That was done back in 2004. And in 2018, there was a file that went through on the, I believe it's daycare property would be on the north side.
So that's it's showing the paved area. So I take it, and I vaguely remember that file through the commission. But I don't recall what it did for stormwater or for access, so forth. Does that have an easement process to this parcel for access?
I don't know the answer to that.
I think so, just physically. But it does directly access Highway 87, I know that.
Well, that's probably, again, Don, a great question. It's probably one for the applicant.
All right. Okay, any other questions, staff? Mr. Green, would you like to state your name and address to the file, please?
Thank you, Commissioners, for your time tonight. I'm Jeremy Green, professional planner and owner of the Rock Planning. And got a couple slides here that hopefully clarify some things for you and bring you up to speed on everything. All right, I think it's one of these. Oh, gotcha. There you go. Great. So I'm here tonight representing Mike and his business up there. As you can see, we're here for a conditional use permit, and you're probably all aware of this, but that's sort of, the permitted use, which is the green, like use the stoplight analogy, your conditional uses, which are yellow, and then your prohibited uses, which are red. So as you're all familiar, this is the site. This is an older photo prior to last year's construction of that building in the western portion and that 4th storage unit that you see in the stormwater plan. was submitted. One of the things I want to point out as we walk through this is, and it will clarify John's question about access and easement, is that this is all under one control, one ownership, effectively one development property on 4 lots now. It's you can see this current layout. That rear lot has subsequently been, the lot line's been adjusted, and that lot's been modified last year. So there are 4 lots on this site. It's in the rural service center zone, and work. This is sort of a better kind of hopefully view for you to see. And I have a hard copy. If you want to see a hard copy of this, but as you can see, the whole site, that exterior border, it has a 6-foot chain link fence around the whole site, and property is accessed. Property's access. You come in on the hard surface, and there's a what is electronic controlled push button gates right here that gets you into the storage portion of the property, which are all the remaining structures. Your comprehensive plan talks about allowing facilities to serve and the needs of rural communities and tourists in the area, which obviously there's a demand for this because you wouldn't be here if there wasn't. Moving right along, your tables, the use tables here, they do talk about a 25-foot minimum front yard setbacks for all uses except for mini storage. Those they ask for 100-foot. You see, we proposed a 70-foot setback from the right of way, whereas the code does call for 100, but I'll get to that on my next slide. The 2 things I want to just emphasize here is under a conditional use, there are 2 conditions. And the first is sufficient land area is required to accommodate proposed use, and which are arranged on the land to minimize adverse effects surrounding properties. And then secondly, maximum square footage for mini storage is 10,000 square feet, and we are proposed below that. This is where when we talk about the setback from the highway here, 12486 talks about use prohibited within 100 feet of state highway or designated arterial, commercial, and rural service center districts. And although it says 100 feet, we're asking for 70. It's interesting, depending on how you interpret that. If you measure from the edge of pavement, the existing structures are 123 feet approximately from the edge of pavement. So in those layouts in the plan and the application, we're saying 70 feet from the right of way, which is obviously a lot further from the edge of pavement. And I just bring that up because they've approved the proposal is going to be certainly more than 100 feet from the edge of pavement. Just some views for you so you can get a better perspective of what this site looks like. You can see some of the other existing units back there on the right, on the other lot, the adjacent lot. And then up here, you're familiar with, I guess, the secondary dawn. I don't know what you call it, but it's some kind of multi-use ATV trail, snowmobile trail between the highway edge of pavement and the frontage of this property. Looking west, southwest, this is really where the new buildings are proposed in this vicinity. And when you talk about stormwater, previous to Mike's purchase of the property, it had been developed to some degree, and the whole site is primarily fairly compacted gravel and dirt. So when you look at the stormwater runoff, even from a roof, it's fairly minimal. The whole site does slope towards that defined stormwater collection area. Looking to the west here, you see that large building in the back on the other tax lot, and to the right here you can see the gate here and that fence, that 6-foot fence with barbed wire around it, that access is granted to it. Finally, this is looking to the north. You can see here the access fence, how folks come in. These storage units would be built in this facility. So specifically, so Taylor, for your question regarding the stormwater being on the other lot, semantics to some degree. This is one comprehensive sort of development project. Mike never intends to break it up. Per the code, we're limited to 10,000 feet for the parcel. So an application for the parcel, ideally, if we're doing this all over again, we come to you and say, here's our comprehensive site plan for these 4 parcels, and maybe combine them all. Maybe we can do that in the future. But there's no intent to break that up, and it would be odd to sell just pieces of it in the future. In terms of the access and easement on for you, again, it functions as a unified parcel. Folks come in off 57 to the secure gate with the code and roll into this pretty broad open area for the whole site. So that's really how it functions. We requesting your approval of the conditional use permit, and any particular questions for either Mike or myself, I'm really happy to answer.
Any questions for the applicant's representative?
Well, I don't know if Jeremy's the right way to ask a question. So right there, the 2 long buildings, so they were through a conditional use permit. And
all 4 of those.
Well, yeah, all the 4 buildings, right? In 2017.
4, pretty old. This was
the daycare. Yeah, the daycare was sometime ago.
The 4
they got reversed.
Yeah, these 4 were a long time ago. Mr. Sackett.
And the daycare, I don't know if I need to introduce myself, but the daycare was a rezoning because it was changed from a use. It was just a reuse. It wasn't the building.
Yeah.
All 4 buildings and the back then Mike Sackett's construction site were all part of one conditioning permit, which is that entire property. So it had those 5 different parcels at that time.
So that's my question. Is this, and maybe this is for staff, is this a rehash of the old conditional use permit, or is it a new conditional?
It's a new conditional use permit on a separate lot.
Right. So those are absolutely separate lots.
They are.
Forward
you can see it here. That would be tax lot number 21.
So it's,
That lot does have an easement that runs through in front of the daycare.
There.
The westerly lot has an access that comes through that. There's a 25-foot easement.
Yeah.
That no one really knows who it owns, to be honest with you. But not my property, but that's how you get access to that big
square lot. Okay. All right, I think we got the right picture. But at present, you own where the 4 units are and where you're proposing the 2. So that question about the drain, the stormwater facility would be on a separate parcel, but still under your ownership at present.
If I understand your question, in Mike Sackett's original conditional use permit, there's a stormwater plan for those, all the lots as well. If that's what you're asking.
Well, yeah, this is where it gets kind of.
Yeah, these 4, Don, are owned by Mike as well.
Yeah.
So they're under common ownership. So we're, from the stormwater perspective, we're looking at it as if it's a unified parcel.
Which have been approved, obviously.
Yeah, with the previous condition before or whatever, way back. And at the time of that condition use permit and the associated building location permits, which are noted there on the graphic 05, the setback from state right of way was
75.
75. I remember 74 somewhere there.
And we're asking for the 70, primarily to give, adequate access on the rear lot, just trying to not make it more complicated and complex for you. I mean, if we had to cut the 75, we'd have to come a little closer and ask for one on the rear lot line.
For sure. Nope.
Okay.
Dimensions are dimensions. So, all right.
Anybody online? Nobody's online?
No.
So we'll close public comment and go to Commissioner deliberation. Comments? Okay. So we'll close that portion and I'll get to the right page here. I'll move for a motion to approve, deny, remand, or continue file CUP 0005-20 conditional use permit Priest Lake storage.
Commissioner Reed, I move to approve this project by the CUP 0005-20 Priest Lake Storage LLC to construct 2 new storage buildings, finding that it is in accordance with the general and specific objectives of the Bonner County Comprehensive Plan and Bonner County Revised Code that enumerated the following conclusions of law, and based upon the evidence submitted up to the time the staff report was prepared and testimony received this hearing. I further move to adopt the following findings of fact and conclusions of law as written. The action that could be taken to obtain a conditional use permit is to complete the conditions of approval as adopted. This action does not result in taking private property.
Commissioner Reeves has made a motion to approve conditional use permit 0005-20 conditional use permit Priest Lake storage. Mike Bills. Is there a second? Commissioner Davis will second that motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Grimm.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Bill.
Thank you.
Okay, we have an action item that we're going to put a date on the subcommittee comprehensive plan committee, sub-comprehensive plan committee. And talking to Amanda and the commissioners, we want to look at March 30th, March 31st, excuse me, as those committees to turn in their paper. So we'll look for a motion and a second and discussion.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Linscott, I move we go ahead and give the date of March 31st. So very committees go ahead and complete what they have or return what they have at that point.
Okay. Mr. Linscott has made the motion to give the subcommittees a drop dead date of March 31st to turn in their project. Is there a second?
Commissioner Reed, I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that just to the deadline for them to turn in their work, or are we going to also allow them the opportunity to come and present it like the selling committee did? And if so, yes to that second question, is that before or after the March 31st date?
We're going to give them a letter to complete what they have by the 31st.
So it'll be akin to what Southwest did.
Yeah,
They turned in their
they've turned it in.
made the presentation. So that was my current question too. Plus, I'd like to know if Amanda can address this. So right now, we've got Sega was coming on strong. We've got Priest Lake coming on slower. And we got Priest River Old Town coming on slowest. But I can't remember, I know it was a different startup date.
you, if you got it there, can you remind us when Priest Lake started? And how much time did it have? And the same thing for Priest River.
Yeah, so East Lake started, I believe, I looked it up the other day. We just surpassed our 1 year. So I think we're like 18 months right now with East Lake. And then Priest River started 1 month before. So we're 1 month.
Oh, right.
They were stacked, yeah.
So a year and a half. And so, and also then just to take a comparison, Southwest County started about the same time, maybe a little before. 18, the summer of 2018. So they went about 2.25, 2.5 years. That's what I'm wondering whether or not, so by March, those two remaining committees will have close to 2 years worth.
So Blanchard did one chapter.
Yeah.
They did one chapter, and Priest Lake is doing, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, and then Priest River wants to do all of them. So all 17 items, elements.
Like a deadline.
You know, if they need to meet twice a month, and that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
But we're not being very good conservative. We're not taking care of the taxpayers. So we need to set a date, free up staff, because next year's going to be a little bit longer.
Chat asking questions about subcommittees, so whenever you're ready.
If you want, you don't have
You don't have to. They have one question. So if you want to hear it, just let me know.
Is it in chat? Is the question in chat?
It's in chat.
Can you pull out, can you click on chat?
That would be Jenna, she's controlling this
Oh.
screen. I don't know if she can show the chat. So the question is, after the sub-area committee members complete their work by March 31st and turn in their work, will be dissolved?
Yes, right.
Yes.
Well, other than we're gonna have them come give a presentation.
You know, if they could give a presentation of what they have.
Well, true.
Right.
But it's still as a committee.
As a committee, as the same as the other, they'll have the same opportunity to do as Samuel Self.
That's helpful.
But we should make it clear. See, that's what we charge the committee to do, is come up with comp plan language for their sub-areas. Not work on planning activity, not working on cases, not continuing on till when. This is a finite assignment, and that's what we intended, and we're sticking.
It's the cost of taxpayers, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We need to put an end to it, because this committee needs to start working on a comprehensive plan. Quickly.
So we're outgrowing the other one. We're outgrowing the other one.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so we got that's the end of the discussion.
So that's the end of discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, Mr. Planning Director.
Thanks. Appreciate the extra time. I can hardly believe that, we can work in 3 meetings a month. But we are busy. So we're still taking in files, like I said earlier, like, what are we, 32 or 35 variances? 35 variances this year. So that's not included. So anyhow, I don't know what to tell you. I kind of told everybody in the other meeting all of our stats, how busy we are.
just trying to take care of folks. We're fortunate that the PLPs have slowed down. So we focus more time on this. We're gonna finish up the two immediate ordinance changes, the mining code and the subdivision code, and then shoreline. We're hoping shoreline will be the only code amendment we work on next year. So through the year. So we're trying to free up our summer so we have more time to deal with all of these. Last year we had permit techs working until 10 or 11 at night, processing BOPs. We have people, we take planners off of their work and have them work on BOPs. We get anywhere from 130 to 160 phone calls a day during the summer months. And so we're trying to gear our work up to where we can be more free during those summer months. So that's kind of what we're working on right now is that. And what do we have this year? 3 turnovers? 3. So which is what, 4 the year before, 5 the year before. So that tends to happen every year. We just got to be trying to be ready for all that stuff. We are going to ask the board for some more help, and hopefully that'll happen. And our budget's definitely way up. I mean, our revenues are way up. So,
January 7th is our workshop for the subdivision ordinance. So everybody, that'll all be current on the website. Everybody, please look at the paperwork. So we're informed when we start the workshop. Yep.
And try not to look at the names of things. Just know that it's the most recent.
So all that information on that workshop is going to be on the team drive?
Yes.
Not on the website.
Did the paper say that this January 7th was the mining?
Yes, the mining ordinance is on the 7th. Along with, we went ahead and we figured that would just be a short meeting, so we put the subdivision workshop on that same night.
Is there any other files that night as well?
There's one other file that night, January 7th.
It doesn't have 105 copies.
No, it doesn't.
So Matt and I have to step away from the mining. So it's important that you guys are either online or here. So they have one.
It's a joke, Reg. Everybody laugh?
Yes, everybody needs to be. If they can, or phone in or just let staff know so they can comment.
In the paper, they made it sound like.
The mining ordinance has been so misunderstood. A certificate of compliance certifies that the property is in compliance. It doesn't certify a new use. It certifies compliance. I mean, it's just, it's what we're finding is that the public just really struggles with our terms, the words that we use to operate with. And I mean, we see this even with this meeting tonight. At the end of our agenda, we put, meeting updates with commissioners and planning staff, and they're asking questions about, is the board coming back? And it's like, no, you know what, state named these guys, right? State came up with the same name. So it's just a matter of understanding the language that we use. And so,
and overall trust.
Well, yeah,
that's the underlying problem. People have lost trust. They're at it, I don't know, but they don't trust anything. So it says this is just a certificate of compliance. Well, they're going to grant something else.
Yeah,
they're not trusting in what it says can happen under that. It's going to be behind closed doors, and you're going to give away the farm, and every square foot of block count is going to have a batch line on it. Come on, what's going to
Well, it's like, we issue certificates of compliance right now for lots. And so, we certify that that lot is legal, that it can be built upon. So it is, it's unfortunate, but it's just a learning curve. And certificate of compliance has been in the code since 2008. It's just not been used in this manner. So, and all we're doing is certifying existing or existing.
Because it can also, like, I found that in the main times before, it's not just for gravel pits.
Right. It's not, that's correct.
It's also on lines.
So it is, it's solving compliance. That's correct.
That's why they're calling it global weirding now instead of global warming. Global weirding, yeah.
Wow, I've never heard that. Yeah.
So I'm thinking, what we just did this week, got it, the committees. How do we legitimately grease the skids under Priest Lake and Pickled Old Town to get them to meet that deadline? I mean, we talked about with the commissioners, tell them, hey, turn that into a board list, or right down to the goals or whatever. I don't know. There's a number of ways to do that, but I'm concerned about Priest Lake from the standpoint that they want to cover everything. Obviously, that's a truckload of stuff instead of a pickup load.
Right.
So, and I explained to every one of the groups about some of those elements that the state code requires, especially the first one, the property rights. It's going to be the same everywhere in the county. There's no special group anywhere in the county that has higher property rights than anybody else. So there's no need for them to take the time to define property rights element in Priest Lake, Priest River Old Town, Southwest. There isn't. And we're the ones that are putting this together. If again, we have to go to these meetings and say, cease and desist on that issue. It's not necessary. Is that, yes, we do. We have that authority. Are we directing them? Yes. We're guiding them to a product.
Well, and I think that this letter, so, we'll have to get it down next. Maybe what we'll do is maybe let us draft it, we'll email it to you.
A way to think about that, so you think about what do we think we would most likely hear from these topics.
Yeah.
And guide them to focus on those areas. Sort of inverse of it.
True, and that's how we eventually laid it out to the committee. But you know your area best. You review all 17 elements that are in comp right now, see what they say, and see if they fit your area. If they don't, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't, because, then we're going to take that on. But highly unlikely that Priest Lake for all 17 elements is so unique that it isn't going to fit something in your backyard or mine. So, no, it doesn't, it's illogical to do. And therefore, somehow point that out to them. And they'll probably get upset and think, well, you're stepping on our toes. Sorry, we own your boots. So we can step on your toes. Yeah, that's hard to say, but it's true.
I might caution asking them for a list because I think we can get a list of wants.
Well, true again, but and we've tried over the months to curtail that stuff. First, in one sense, you got to say you're going to review the comp plan that's there. Well, you got to determine if something's broken in that comp plan. We started this whole thing. It's inadequate. So either the language of the comp plan just doesn't fit our area, period, because we're so unique. All right, then say why and come up with a new language. If you find that it's okay, it's not broken, you're not going to fix it. And we're going to go through that exercise too. That's our first thing. We've got to review what's there now, talk with staff about insufficiency of that language, those descriptions, those goals, or something, why it isn't strong enough to fix it. Not an invention thing here. We're going to fix it.
And I actually think what
pictures of it, I actually think the same was gonna be easily, I really do. There's been some great strides in the last few meetings.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it'll be a good document.
I do too. I do too. So when is Priest Lake to meet again?
The first Tuesday of January, I forget what that date is. So
Yeah.
that's, I believe it's the fifth.
Yeah, being the first. So whether that's an in-person meeting, hard to tell.
Yeah. So I can see them meet.
They will want to.
Yeah.
We will accommodate that.
Yeah.
I'll accommodate what any group wants to do. If they want to talk weekly or bi-weekly, whatever it takes for them to feel comfortable to meet at that time.
Okay, being at 8:51, this meeting is continued till January 7th. At the administration building, 1500 Highway 2, San Antonio, Idaho, first floor,